The war we thought we finished is just beginning. And the only thing standing in front of the apocalypse is us.
Hi folks, I'm Ignatiy Vishnevetsky.
And I'm Alex Dowd.
Today we're talking about Pacific Rim Uprising, the sequel to Guillermo Del Toro's 2013 film Pacific Rim.
Welcome to Film Club.
I think most people will agree that the most fun thing about the original Pacific Rim is its world and just the curiosity and the fascination that it has with it. I mean, we've often talked about this as a quality of Guillermo Del Toro films, that they feel like an excuse to design all of these environments, design all of these monsters. So it's kind of a disappointment to see this sequel, which is not written or directed by Del Toro or Travis Beacham, the original co-writer, that it feels so impersonal, that it's not a geek's fantasy.
Well, right. The original was built from cliches, from the bottom up. He wasn't just riffing on kaijū movies, you know, old Godzilla movies. He wasn't just riffing on sort of Japanese mecha culture, these giant robots. He was also kind of doing a spin on Top Gun. I mean, it's basically a Top Gun movie with giant monsters and robots.
And some Independence Day.
Yeah. And there's even a little like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in it, with that very fascinating drift compatibility concept, you know, that you need two minds to run one of these giant machines.
Yeah, so to explain for viewers who have not seen Pacific Rim, it's set in the near future where kaijū, basically the giant monsters of, you know, the Godzilla franchise, you'd say, start coming out of an extra-dimensional portal in the Pacific Ocean, and humanity fights them in these 300-foot robots. But because they're so big and they're so complicated and it's so stressful to operate them, you actually need two pilots to run it, and they have the drift, right?
You have to mind meld, basically.
Yeah, neural link.
So you're sharing memories. You're basically operating this thing with your minds together in unison, so you have to be compatible. It's a fascinating idea that neither film does very much with, you know?
So this one actually manages to do even less with the idea than Pacific Rim did.
For sure. And I think this film doubles down on the cliches of the original. There's tons of them in this. I mean, you have a character played by John Boyega, who is basically the son of Idris Elba's character in the original. So he's this disgraced rebel son of a great leader struggling to live up to his dad. You have an estranged partnership because he's sort of come back to the military to work with Scott Eastwood. You have a ragtag team of army brats. You have the orphan kid who wants to be a pilot. All these cliches. But you know, the thing about it is that Del Toro believed in his cliches. You know, he really did. And he brought this level of deep, nerdy affection for all of this material. In this, I don't get that impression. I don't get the impression that this has been made with that level of geeky fandom. You
don't feel like there are details just begging you to be distracted from the narrative as you do in Pacific Rim.
Well, in the original we meet this Hannibal Chow character who lives, I think, in Hong Kong, is it?
Either way, it's within the bones of a kaiju.
Yeah, he's basically living in the giant carcass of one of these monsters. And they're implying this whole world, like how has the world been reshaped by the existence of these creatures? That's the kind of stuff that fascinates Del Toro. That doesn't fascinate the makers of this second one. The action is proficiently staged, I think. I think Del Toro did a better job of conveying the sheer sort of size and mass of these things.
Well, because they're bulkier,
right.
They're so clearly machines, you know?
Yeah.
You know, Cherno Alpha, the one that looks like a big bucket or nuclear reactor, or nuclear cooling tower. And here they just look like Michael Bay Transformers.
Right, they're like jumping around, they're doing parkour, you know, they're like blasting through buildings. And to me, that's less cool and less specific than this idea that it's a giant hunk of machinery that these people are controlling. You can forget watching this one that there's anyone even inside these robots. Which, by the way, you brought up, why do they need to be in the head? You know, like, I get why the things are shaped like people, but I mean, wouldn't you maybe want to be like in the abdomen or something, you know?
So yeah, once you're questioning the logic of a film like this, then it's clearly not holding your attention. I think if there's one way to really like define the problem here is that unlike the original, this is a film that doesn't feel like it's anybody's passion project.
Right. I think the only person in this who's having any fun is Charlie Day, sort of reprising his role as the monster-loving scientist.
Next time, why'd you learn how to use a gun? Tighten it down! Vile individual! Thank you, Newton. I'd hug you if I didn't have a rule about public displays of affection. It's fine. Okay, all right.